Here's the number one secret wrestling journalists don't want you to know. And with that, we are moving on to the second topic, which is about Swerve Strikland's podcast that he has. And not too long ago, he put out a little mini video where he's interviewing Britt Baker. Now, this was the talk for a whole day or two, and it sort of bothered me. So this is why I'm talking about it. And again, this is my own opinion. I know Swerve is going to have maybe some feelings about it. People are going to have some feelings about it. I may catch heat for this, but, you know, it is a different perspective. It is an opinion, and that's all it is. If you disagree, that's totally fine. You don't have to agree with everything that I say, nor do I want you to worship me or treat me like you have to say that my opinion is gospel or whatever, or put me on a pedestal. You don't have to do that. But this is just my opinion and how I feel about something and how I think about something. And I'm going to break it down the same way that I broke down the first topic with all these questions and all this stuff. So the little mini video is Britt Baker talking about how she continued to go to work in AEW with a broken nose, a broken wrist, a concussion. She broke her leg in her wrestling career. Nonetheless, she is naming her injuries, which every wrestler gets injuries. It's understandable. However, a little bit before that, it is very evident that Swerve is instigating to have Britt talk about these injuries in relation to Thunder Rosa. Now, other people could be like, oh no, it really wasn't about Thunder Rosa. But the next day, Swerve put up the whole entire clip and they were talking about Thunder Rosa and how Britt was saying that they don't like each other. They like clash and everything, and then proceeded to talk about her injuries. No matter how you look at it, it really sounds bad that you would have to continue to constantly bury one of your coworkers when you don't like them. The professional thing to do is, yeah, you could definitely say you don't like them, but don't just bury them and be like, oh, well, I returned to work even though I was injured. And knowing that Thunder Rosa has a back injury, like that's a very serious injury. If you have a back injury, you can't walk, you have to get physical therapy, you may have to get surgery, and maybe the surgery goes wrong and then like you really can't, you're paralyzed. It's a really huge deal. It's not like a broken nose where you get the surgery, you can go to work the next day and do something light. It's not like if you broke your wrist, you could go to work the next day and do something light and not overwork it. With a back injury, that is very scary to have. And so everybody really saw the clip of Britt talking about her injuries, and they all responded and they all didn't like it because it doesn't make anybody look good. And this isn't like they're in a story where it's an angle where she's saying all this to get Thunder Rosa motivated to be like, hey, Thunder, you know, I do all these things. You know, what have you produced for AEW? Now, if they were doing this into a storyline, into a work, sure, I wouldn't have like probably said anything about it. But because we know that this isn't a story, and it sounds more like a shoot, and it sounds more like I got that chip on my shoulder, even though they're probably playing to their characters, but that's still like a really bad outlook to have. That's still like a really bad reputation to put forth because it doesn't look well, it doesn't sound well, and it was only taken for clickbait. And then when Swerve did not get the appropriate reaction to it and everything, everyone's response was, this is bad. How can you bury Thunder Rosa? There was very conflicting comments, but the bulk of it was not what Swerve wanted. And depending on who commented, he would just say, oh, you should sub. And it's like, why should that person sub to your YouTube channel to listen to the full interview if they are already angry and they don't like the fact that someone is being buried unjustly? And you think that deserves a follow and a subscription and a like and a share? because it's clickbait and you want the views, you want the controversy, and you want the revenue money, which is all understandable. But that's not the way to go. You're not going to get someone who's already angry to go sub just so they could watch the full entire interview. If they're already upset at this one part, what makes you think that they want to go and listen into it more? If there was further context, along with Britt Baker mentioning all the injuries, maybe it would have been a different reaction to it. But everyone's reaction was emotional because together we are tired of hearing the burial of Thunder Rosa. Like, Thunder Rosa has given everything to AEW, including her women from Mission Pro Wrestling, and she still gets buried. And it feels like no one wants her there because of how people talk about her and bury her, and then the reports come out and the reports are not true, and she says it every time that she goes on Busted Open Radio that if you have a problem with her, you go to her and you talk it out. She's one of those women that is true to what she says. Don't doubt her. 90% of Spanish women do what they say. That's why we're crazy people. I'm just saying, that's why we're crazy. But the whole situation really spiraled out of control. So many comments, so many things. So the next day, Swerve puts up the whole entire context, and everyone in the comments were like, see, you should have just listened to the whole entire interview. Swerve knew what he was doing. He wanted the clicks. It was clickbait, but he didn't get the reaction that he wanted to. And then by putting the full context and everyone jumping on the bandwagon of, you guys should listen to the whole thing, it's sort of like a manipulation tactic to sort of be like, oh, he's the good guy in this situation. It's like, you should have thought better on how to promote the clickbait so that way it wouldn't have turned so emotional. If he would have backed up a little bit in the video and showed what the conversation was about, then we could have a healthy discussion about the situation, about, talking about injuries and stuff like that. Maybe if like Britt was a little more sympathetic to be like, back injuries are no joke, then maybe like we wouldn't have the situation what we had on Twitter yesterday. I just wanted to bring that to light because that's something to look out for. That's something to pay attention to. And it's something that we don't need in the wrestling community, especially among women's wrestling. I get it. You're not going to like everybody you work with. You're not. That goes for the men too. And that goes for everyone else around the world. You're not going to like everyone that you work with. But in the world of professional wrestling, you have to be professional. Now, I can understand if like Britt was no longer an AEW worker and she decided to go on a podcast to be like, yeah, Thunder Rosa and I butt heads and want to say all this stuff about Thunder Rosa. Sure, you could do that. But you're under the company banner of AEW, and so is Thunder Rosa, who is still the AEW Women's World Champion because Toni Storm is the interim champion. Why would you talk so bad about your coworkers under the same umbrella if you guys are not going to be doing an angle and you guys are not going to be working together? If you're not going to do any of those things, then do not bury your coworkers when your coworkers have a serious injury that can really damage their career. Just some food for thought. How are we doing so far? Are you guys still wondering what is the number one secret that wrestling journalists don't want you to know? Well, I'll say it at the end after this one. We are already up to the third topic. Now, before we get into the third topic and the final topic, I need to remind everyone that has come this far, that has listened this far, that the opinions and analogies and pictures and perspectives that have been stated in this whole entire podcast, whether I keep it as one long podcast or I break it up into 3 sections so it could be easier for you guys to consume and understand what I'm talking about is all of my opinions, and they do not reflect anyone else's opinions and stuff. Everything that I have said on the podcast episode is all of my thoughts, my perspectives, everything. It's all me. It's no one else. No one's telling me to do it. And I'm not doing it on behalf of anyone else. I am Marie Shadows of the Square Circle Podcast, and just wanted to put that reminder out there. What up, ladies and gentlemen? It is your host, Marie Shadows of the Square Circle Podcast. And thank you for listening to episode 2 of this 3-part series of this huge, big podcast where I talk about the news, rumors, and updates that the internet wrestling community war zone has definitely given me some content to talk about. I really hope you enjoy this one. Again, remember that this is just my opinion. If you don't agree, that's totally okay. You don't have to agree with everything that I say. The same way that you have your opinion, I have my opinion. The only thing I ask is respect. The only reason why I talked about this particular topic is because I really don't like seeing people being manipulated on the internet. And it's very easy to manipulate people these days, especially with social media going around. It's very simple. And I just don't like when people are taken advantage of, especially telling how to think, what to do, what to say, what to watch, all that kind of stuff. It's all types of manipulation to further someone's narrative or agenda. And I just want to bring some light to it because it's really annoying to always hear the stories of how Thunder Rosa is this, Thunder Rosa is that, and someone is bigger and better than her. And it's like, that's not how you uplift the women's wrestling in professional wrestling. That's not how you do it. We all need to be professional. You leave your bad blood behind closed doors. And if it does become into a storyline, then you can use it. But if it's not, don't bring it up into the public eye and really make it look so messy and bad. All right, so I hope you enjoyed part 2. Just wanted to give a little extra context. Of course, if you did like it, share with a friend, tell a friend, and you can always subscribe to marieshadows.substack.com for more wrestling content.